Thank you to Trusted House Sitters for sponsoring the view of this video. I'm not actually sponsored, it's just a joke. The topic that I want to talk about today is how we give our power away when we make everything around us about us. Specifically, when we make other people's behavior about us. And I want to talk about why that's not the case to start with, that people's behavior around you is about you. I want to talk about why it's not actually really good for you to live like this, in this state of constantly being triggered because you believe that everything that the other people are doing is somehow about you, whether it's your parents, your children, your lovers, your friends, the world as a whole, to be honest, as well. I will also describe what that looks like so you can sort of recognize if this is something you're doing. I will talk about how to start not doing that, kind of practical ways of stopping doing that, and what your life will look like if you stop doing that. This mechanism that I want to talk about today is something that I'm still putting together as a puzzle, and it's been coming together quite nicely recently. More information, more insights, more confirmation has been coming into my field about this topic, and so I wanted to start putting it into words and putting it into video format. So I think I'll start by explaining what this looks like. The way we make someone's behavior or someone's words about ourselves, we start thinking thoughts like, she's so controlling. He is trying to annoy me on purpose. She's gaslighting me. He's trying to hurt me. Sometimes the thoughts can be, he's so dumb. She's so slow. He's so unloving, or he doesn't care about me. She isn't even trying to understand me. When we think these things, usually, because of the nature of these thoughts, we will also feel a certain emotion. Usually it's anger or covert anger, so it could be resentment. Sometimes it's upset, feeling sad. Whatever it is though, there will be an emotional reaction to that thought. When we feel that emotional reaction, that is the point at which our minds and our bodies have decided that their behavior is about me. So all of this is quite like, you might need to sit with all of this a few times, maybe even rewatch the video, like watch it and then in a week's time come back to it, because it's something that we have to wrap our head around at first. But when you really sit with it and it lands, you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it now. Especially if you will experience it in your daily life and you'll watch that happen to you, it will really set in and you will understand what this is about. Let's say, I'm going to give like a specific example now. And actually this is example from my own life. My grandmother has always been very controlling. I was raised by my grandmother as well as my mom and my sister. But my grandmother was a special case of anxiety. I am not exaggerating when I say that every time I would go and visit her, or at the time of when I was still a kid living with her, every single day, almost every minute of the day that I was in her environment, she would tell me what to do. Put that down, do that quicker, eat faster, eat slower, dress faster, let's go that way, no, let's go this way. Like everything in my life was a constant, do this, do that, you're doing that wrong, do this instead. It was constant. And I grew up with that. And you can imagine the kind of nervous system I had, the kind of state I was in, living with someone like that. As children, which I was at the time of living with her, we by nature are wired to make everything about ourselves, partially because it's actually safer for us to do that. So from a young age, I believed that all of this behavior that my grandmother was exhibiting was about me. I knew obviously that she was doing that to other people too. Well, not her friends or anything, but my sister, my mom, and probably more so to me, probably because I was youngest. But I thought that in her telling me constantly what to do, I created a set of beliefs around myself, about myself and about the world and about other people, such as whatever I do, I'm doing it wrong, or whatever I do is not the right thing to do. I should be doing something else, something better, whatever that means. It was difficult to cope with that level of control, like constant control. As I was growing up, became a teenager, then an adult, young adult, I became quite angry about that. So my state of powerlessness and hopelessness at the time of being a child, when my grandmother would do that to me, grew into anger. So I would try to fiercely protect my boundaries and tell her to shut up and to stop controlling me and to stop doing that, to F off, and I would be really aggressive because I was trying to set up boundaries. And I didn't think at the time that, first of all, for a long time, I didn't really understand that the reason she was doing it is because of her anxiety. I never thought of it in that perspective of why is she doing that? It was just behavior that I was observing, that I was treating as if it was about me. About a couple of years ago, I don't really know why, maybe because there was kind of a big gap between seeing her, because she doesn't live in the UK. At the time, at one point I went to see her, it was probably 3 years after seeing her last time. And I was somehow able to observe her from a distance, if you like. And that was the point at which I was like, man, she's doing all of these things, she's saying these things, she's acting in this way because she is so incredibly anxious and she has zero skill or knowledge. She doesn't, I don't think, even understand that she's anxious. She's lived like this all of her 80 years of her life. She doesn't even understand what normal is. So she is high functioning, has been living with high functioning anxiety all of her life. And this is how she copes. And when I saw that, when there was something in my mind that happened that I was could see it so clearly. And I had so much compassion and love and understanding flow towards her in that moment. And not only that, but I understood that the things that she's doing were never about me. And from that point on, it took a few times, to get better at it, communication-wise, but I rarely now feel very triggered by the things that she says. Sometimes because it's constant, as I described, it does get too much for my nervous system and for me as a person. So I do go Gran, stop, enough, I do say that, but it is only from a loving place now, from a place of understanding, from a place of compassion, but I set my boundary when it's necessary for my well-being. And she understands it, and she stops doing whatever she's doing that's too much, and then we just crack on with the rest of our day. Whereas before, I would avoid her, even when I would go to see her for a week, only a week in a year, 2 years, 3 years, I would shut myself in my room for a lot of the time because I just could not stand that kind of control, and I didn't know how to tell her to stop, and I just didn't know how to deal with it. I can't tell you how, I can't describe it enough how much our relationship has changed because I stopped taking what she's doing personally. I was able to give my presence to her anxiety, which helped her anxiety to be soothed, so we could connect better. And I could spend more time with her. I felt like I wanted to spend time with her. I felt like I could physically spend time with her. It wasn't overwhelming anymore. I knew how to protect my own boundaries. I was not able to do any of that just 2-3 years ago. This happens to every single one of us in at least one of our relationships. And it all stems from that initial pattern, which I mentioned earlier, of as children, we have to, for our safety, take everything personally. This is how our ego develops. It's a normal way of functioning as a child. The problem is we don't grow out of that. The work that is required to undo that is a conscious work. And most people don't know the skill of doing that. Maybe I'll give you another example. Perhaps that will be useful. One of my clients, she has a difficult relationship with her husband. From her description of him, he can be quite a difficult person. The things that he would do, she started to believe that maybe there's something wrong with her. Because he does these things all the time, and they continuously hurt her, and she continuously tries to change that dynamic, but he doesn't want to change, and he is not doing anything about it. And yet she was unable to leave him. Even though she didn't like the dynamic, she didn't like how he was treating her, she couldn't leave. So she couldn't leave and she couldn't change him. So she felt a lot of freeze response because she felt stuck and powerless. And just unwell because of the way he was treating her. And at one point she got a confirmation that it wasn't anything wrong with her. It was the way he is. And that is why he's doing those things. Because there was another person that came into the picture that told her, yeah, I just noticed that he does that. Like, he does this thing that you're talking about. So for her, it was like an aha moment of like, oh my God, I'm not going crazy. Like, he does this thing and it's not me. Like, it's not my fault and it's not about me. It's the way he is. And when she realized that, she had this huge opening happen for her where she felt so much more physical energy. She felt so much more excited for life. She felt towards him that I just realized I don't need to change you, but I also don't accept that in my life. And I don't want to be with you. And not because you are a bad person, but I just can't be with you. So we need to separate. So the example of me and my grandmother and the example of this client of mine and her husband is very telling of two things that will happen when you stop giving away your power or when you stop making other people's behavior about you. Number one, you either accept them as they are, just that how I've accepted my grandmother. I've realized that she will never change, and to be honest, that's fine. Because I am okay now with the way she is. And I actually feel so much more love towards her. I can connect with her so much more. I have total acceptance of the way she is. And then there is the other thing that can happen when you stop making other people's behavior about you. You realize that you cannot accept it. And you have now the energy, the brain power, the physical power to leave, separate, to say that's not for me anymore and go your own way. You cannot talk your way out of that. You cannot talk your way through that. It's something that has to happen in the body. This awareness, this deep awareness that either I'm accepting this or I'm not and I'm going. Most people find themselves in a place of, I cannot accept this, and I also can't leave. And that is why so many women especially, but men as well, end up in either abusive relationships or simply relationships that unsatisfy them, unhappy relationships, and all of these unhealthy dynamics within relationships. So what is it that we're doing specifically when we make other people's behavior about us? When we make other people's behavior about us, what we're doing actually is we're making their behavior about what we believe about ourselves and the world. So I'm going to say it again. We make other people's behavior about what we believe about ourselves and the world around us. Another example. Imagine a woman and a man. So romantic relationship again. And this woman in her childhood has experienced maybe a relationship with their parent that was narcissistic and controlling, kind of emotionally controlling in a way of making a child feel small, feel unimportant, feel crazy even sometimes. So there was some emotional abuse that happened in childhood. That child will likely grow up believing other people are not safe. I can't trust other people. I can't trust myself. When people argue, that is dangerous. Arguments and conflict is dangerous. And other people in general are dangerous. And so many other things that could be going on, but I'm just kind of giving examples here. These beliefs will stay with that woman as long as she is alive, for as long as she doesn't do anything about changing these beliefs. So now she's in a partnership, and as every relationship, arguments happen, conflict happens. But the difference is that when conflict happens and they start fighting and the man tries to prove his point, and in light of his own internal things, maybe his own trauma, maybe the way he just views the world as a whole, whatever the reason, he is being maybe a little bit sneaky, a little bit manipulative. Honestly, we all do that to one degree or another. So we all have narcissistic parts of ours, in every single one of us has it. So not to any extreme, but he maybe was trying to kind of make her believe that he is right, because he maybe doesn't want to feel like he is losing an argument, or maybe he doesn't want to feel any particular way. It doesn't matter what it is. He doesn't want to feel a certain way in himself. So he does this manipulative action or whatever. Unconsciously, not on purpose. It's just his reaction. And it is about him and his history and his understanding and his trauma and whatever else. It's about him. But when it happens in their relationship and he portrays that behavior, the way that woman will read it is, he is trying to manipulate me. He is trying to gaslight me because he is a bad person, because he is dangerous, because he is just like my parents. And I can't trust myself and I can't trust him. And everything then starts to be about me and my worldview and etc., etc., etc. That then blows up into a huge fight because she gets into this huge protective mode, because when she feels this threatened, she will start to get really aggressive. What happens when she gets into protective mode? She starts to manipulate back, or she breaks down. If this happened, so let's keep the man the same character, but a woman hasn't had the same experience in her childhood. A woman is maybe already gone through healing, or she just never been that hurt in her life, and so she is quite centered and she has never really experienced manipulation, or she understands what it is, but it doesn't really affect her because she can see through it and she can see that it's not about her. So in that same scenario, the man will try and protect himself, and the woman will stay curious and ask him, why did you say that? Or like, why are you trying to convey that? Like, what's on your mind? What is happening for you? And that curiosity will soften the man, and he'll be able to put his guard down and they will have a normal conversation. That's an ideal scenario, but that is how things should go if at least one person is regulated and stays in their body and doesn't project and doesn't make everything in this argument about them. How do I know that this happens? Because this happened to me many times in my relationship where in the past I would blow up, I would be extremely emotional, I would be very reactive because I thought that my partner was doing what my mother used to do. And when I started to heal those parts of myself, I was able to turn on the muscle of curiosity towards my partner. I stopped making him my enemy because I realized this person is choosing to be in a relationship with me. He actually loves me. Even though I might not see that in that moment, maybe I believe strongly that actually he's a manipulator, he's so fucking dangerous, I need to run. Over time, you have to build a muscle that will recognize that there are safe people around you. And if there aren't, it will take time, but you will surround yourself eventually with safe people. And you will have to train your brain and your body to recognize that they're safe. And those safe people will never intentionally try to hurt you. The only way that that might happen is unintentionally, because they're triggered and they have their own wounding and they have their own history, and none of it is intentional. And none of it is specifically about you. When we're in that state of believing that the thing that is happening right now is about me, first of all, we assume the worst about the world and the person in front of us. But secondly, what also happens in the background, if you like, is we are confirming. When we see that behavior and we say, he's doing this because of that and because of me and to do this to me. When we do that, we are confirming our own beliefs about ourselves and about the world. So this is where like confirmation bias kind of comes in, where we say, well, I already knew that all people are dangerous and manipulative and narcissistic. Well, that just confirms it. So we leave human beings in front of us no room for error. We see them as the worst enemies in the world. We are not being curious about their experience. And all of that is a trauma response. And you can heal from that and you can change that pattern. Many people don't want to change their ways and change their patterns of protection and do anything about their anger that comes out sporadically, that comes out in as they themselves understand, kind of irrationally sometimes. They don't want to change that because they believe that if I change that or if I do something about it, I will be manipulated again. I will be hurt again. I will be unsafe again. But I am telling you, as someone who's gone through this whole process, that when you heal that part of you, when you stop seeing the worst in people straight away automatically, when you start being curious from a healthy, safe place, you are actually able to protect yourself so much better because you have capacity and skill to set healthy boundaries. Because what you're doing right now is not healthy. Sometimes it is borderline abusive. It's like, the victim becomes the perpetrator. That's what happens a lot in our world today, where we have so many victims of childhood abuse, adolescent abuse, or trauma in any capacity, developmental trauma, whatever it is. And we go through life living out all of our trauma. We don't take responsibility for our reactions and our healing. And then we go on to hurt other people as if it's a payback to our pain. But that doesn't work like that. You just continue to hurt yourself and the world. So I promise you that when you heal, you become stronger. It's like a bone that breaks. If you continue to walk on a broken bone, it will hurt. And you will be angry and upset and you won't understand why does everything hurt so much, because your bone is broken. But if you heal it properly, As we know from physical bones, when you break a bone and it heals, it becomes stronger. I don't know the physiology of it, but it's a well-known fact that the bone structure becomes even stronger than it was before breaking. It's exactly what happens with emotional healing as well, when you heal. When we make up our mind that the world around us is dangerous, is unsafe, and we don't trust anyone, we don't want to trust anyone, and in that way we see everyone around us as an enemy that is trying to come for us and come at us and hurt us. When we do that, we cannot have productive conversations, we cannot find solutions to problems, and we feel stuck because of that. As I explained before, because of the way trauma works, we will continuously try to change the person next to us so that they stop hurting us. And usually that person will show resistance to change. And it's not because they are a bad person, but they won't change. And so we either have to accept them or we have to leave. And neither of those things usually happen when you have trauma that isn't healed yet. So we feel stuck and we feel unable to change the situation, which makes us feel what? Powerless. And this is exactly where the term giving our power away comes from. When we feel powerless to change the situation, it is because we have given our power away to another person. When that person in front of us, in our minds, is trying to hurt us or is annoying on purpose to make us feel upset, make us feel something on purpose, when we believe that, we essentially say that the only way I will feel better is if they change their behavior. And that rarely happens. And so by taking the power back, what we're doing is we're saying, actually, I don't need to change that person. In fact, I can't. So my options are to either accept them or leave them. And that is when you take your power back. And you feel this huge amount of release of energy, life energy, and you feel empowered, you feel energetic, you feel excited for life. So it's quite a physiological process that really happens with this, pattern of giving our power away because of trauma, because of how trauma works. It's a physiological, biological process in our body. It's not just woo-woo kind of belief that, oh, my power is giving away. It's quite physical and emotional and mental and energetic. So it is quite a serious thing. And it is also serious because I see, as my clients come and go, I see women, so many women, struggle with that because they feel powerless in their relationships. Even though most of these women are not in, what we could consider abusive relationships. A lot of them even say, on paper, my man is perfect. What is wrong with me? My man is perfect. He loves me. And yet I am unhappy. I'm experiencing severe trauma symptoms. My body's breaking down or shutting down. I have flashbacks. So many things that I hear from my women clients. It's a pattern. And as I said at the start, I haven't figured out this whole puzzle yet, but it's starting to make some sense to what's happening. So, to the interesting part, I hope all of that was interesting, but to the important part of this video. What should we do about all of this? So if you find that, oh my God, I do that all the time, sometimes it's really hard to recognize or make ourselves understand that what the other person does isn't about ourselves. I have that too, still. There are certain parts of my life, certain relationships, certain topics where my brain is so stubborn and it says, no, they are wrong. They need to change. I'm not doing anything. So and I think that's okay. And that's normal. And I'm not trying to force it to be any other way. So I want to encourage you to understand that it's all fine. It's all about, does it serve you? Are you happy living with this belief, this acceptance or non-acceptance? This is all you have to ask yourself. So if you're not fine and you want to do something about it, here's what you do. One path to take is to heal your personal trauma. if you have never been to any kind of therapist before, you can start with talk therapy. That is definitely a good first step, to start talking about things that happen to you. But that in itself will never like heal the root of your trauma, because the roots of our trauma are in our physiology. Like, trauma is a biological, physiological process. So what you need is a therapist who understands somatics, who works with the body, with the nervous system specifically. Not just a psychologist who is trauma informed. That might not be enough. They need to understand how to, like, they need to have the skills to work with your physical body responses. So yeah, trauma resolution, I cannot recommend it high enough to anyone. An amazing thing about healing a trauma is not just a better quality of physical, practical life, feeling happier, feeling present in your life, but it's also actually very much spiritual. Even though we're going into our body to heal these roots of our problems, an amazing side effect of that, if you like, is a hugely deep spiritual connection with yourself. Which I cannot yet explain why it happens, but healing trauma for some reason is such a catalyst for just immense spiritual awakening. So yeah, cannot recommend it enough. And it's a process you never will be done with. Like, you can never just heal and that's it, you go. It's a lifelong process. But when you heal kind of the big chunk of your trauma, if you like, you'll start to understand how all of this works, and you will feel so much better. So I recommend that. Second thing that you can start already today, even if you haven't yet started healing your trauma, is that word that I've been using in this video, which is curiosity. So you can, it will be difficult, like, don't get me wrong, this is not going to be like easy peasy walk in the park. It will be hard to become curious. Almost every person in your life will be open to your curiosity, to your genuine, authentic curiosity and your softness. So if you're struggling with your husband, your sibling, your parent, your child, and you want to have a better quality relationship with them, there's two ways to be curious. One is to observe. So even not having a conversation, but watching them live and how they function, watching what they do, can open up your mind so much to understand why they do things that they do, why they say things that they say. Just like it did like it happened with me and my grandmother when I watched her, and I was like, oh my God, she's so anxious. I've never seen that before. Everything she does is riddled with anxiety. Of course, she's going to be saying and doing things like that. If you were that anxious, you'd be doing that too, you know? So watch them. And number two, engage in a conversation, in a curious conversation. So if you're having a debate with them or just a conversation, ask them, why do you say that? Like, what makes you say that? What do you, when you say that, what are you thinking about? What is happening in your experience when you tell me that, you know, that when you get angry or like whatever? And, you know, there's a lot of prompts that I could give you. If you're interested in that, if there's anything that you want me to expand on in this video, just leave a comment down below. But curiosity, there's actually a statement in trauma healing that curiosity is actually kind of the opposite of trauma in a lot of ways. There's many opposites of trauma if we go into that, but curiosity is literally a tool that I use as a somatic practitioner to help people heal their trauma. So being curious about another person will not only help them open up to you and for you to understand them better, but it will help you to soften, to understand, oh, I believe that about them, but now I've asked them and they've told me this completely different thing that I didn't even think about. That process will change your mind so much, and it will improve your relationships so much. And don't think that you will have one of these conversations and it will go well and that's it. Like, now you're done. Yes, happy relationship for the rest of our lives. No, you're gonna have to have these conversations as often as you've been arguing, right? Like if you are arguing like every day, you will have to show up with curiosity every day. And the more you do it, the more your partner will, if they are genuinely loving partner, or they want to make it work with you, they'll pick up on it and they'll realize what you're doing and they'll do the same back to you. So that's the other tool to use to overcome this. If you're at the stage where you're even struggling to realize the moments when you do it, you can start by writing it down. So if you go through an argument and it makes you really emotional, super angry or super powerless, whatever it might be in your experience, and after the fact, like an hour later or a day later, you realize, oh, that made me really emotional, or, you know, that made me really angry, that made me really upset, that made me really triggered. Write it down. And when you write it down, if you write it down multiple times, when it happens multiple times, you'll then be able to track it. You'll be able to track it and notice patterns. And when you read it back to yourself, you'll start to understand yourself better as well. So the first step, if you're like so far away from all of this and you're like, I don't even notice in the moment that it's triggering me, so how can I even know that I'm giving my power away, etc. You start where you are. So if where you are is, I only realized what happened like a day later, start there. So you realize that a day later, analyze it, write it down, sit with it. What happened exactly? What did they say that triggered you? What do you make that mean about yourself? So you can do that after the fact. So there's many ways in which you can bring it to you, like where you are at. Because I don't really know who is watching this video. You know, I don't know if you are a somatic practitioner like myself, so a lot of this already makes sense to you and you just needed this like little bit extra understanding, or maybe you are literally someone who's never gone to therapy and you're just suffering with constant fighting in your life, and you have like no idea what the fuck's going on. So like, I don't know who you are, but what I do know is that whoever you are, you can start with wherever you are. So tailor it to your experience. And if you're struggling, I'm obviously available as always. My website will always be in my description, so you can email me, you can message me on Instagram, you can book a call with me, free call with me. So do engage if you feel called to. But otherwise, I hope this video was helpful. I can't explain the benefits of removing yourself from that projection, from that merging with the conflict, with the emotion, with the judgment, with the anger. When you're boiling in that, like it's so toxic, and for you, it's just not going to do anything for you. And sometimes we have to boil in that for a bit until we realize some things. But yeah, I hope this video helps you to kind of start to move in the direction of disengaging from that and seeing it for what it is, and either making peace with it, well, either way making peace with it, and either accepting it and finding more love, more openness in your relationships, or accepting it and moving on. So I hope that those are the effects that you can find in your life, and realize that you are powerful, that you can always take your power back. Nobody can ever hold it forever without your consent. I hope these tools help and this understanding helps. Next video that I will post, I will be talking about a tool that I use quite frequently in my life, that helps me get unstuck, that helps me see a bigger picture, that helps me plan, that helps me quite physically rewire my brain and the patterns in my mind, and program in new patterns and a new way of living. And it has been quite life-changing for me, and I don't say that lightly. As much as somatic therapy has been, they've kind of been life-changing in their own ways. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, do subscribe if you want to see this video and any future videos, if you resonated with this conversation today. And yeah, I am excited for the next video as well. And in terms of this video today, yeah, as I said, Any questions, please leave the comments down below. Anything you want me to expand on, just let me know. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.